Okay, hello. Today we'll be going over what you need to do to refinish an AK-74 stock set. So we have all of our materials laid out here, and we can go over it in a little bit. As a surprise, as a preview of what's to come, I have a finished stock here that I redid to be more of an amber AK-74 stock, and I'll go through with you on video how to refinish these handguards that smell pretty smoky, and I think we're in a fire or something. Anyway, we're going to be refinishing these to match the stock for a complete set. So first things first, we'll get our materials ready. You need chemical resistant gloves, things that are really strong. So they sell specific gloves for varnishing. These are 3M chemical resistant gloves. And this is our stripper, citrus strip. You need a very cheap paintbrush, some scrubbing pads, grade 1 steel wool. We'll be using this in lieu of sandpaper. We really don't want to take off too much material when we sand after stripping, so we're going to try to keep it pretty contained with the number 1 steel wool, just to smooth it out. Our stain is Minwax Colonial Maple. For the stock, I use 2 coats, but we'll see what it takes for the handguards. Some grade 0, 4-0 steel wool. This is for sanding down the finishing coat. And then we have amber shellac. So this will be our sealer. I've had some bad experiences with polyurethane, so we're going to try shellac instead. It worked really well for the stock, and hopefully it'll work just as well for the handguards. So before we really get into it, we have to figure out how we're going to let each piece dry between coats. So here for the handguards, we're going to lay them on this metal mesh in a plastic tub between coats. For the stock though, it's a continuous curve and you can't really lay it down flat. So what we're going to do is take a screwdriver, because there's a spring in there for the cleaning kit. Take it and stretch the spring where you have it resting, pulled out enough so you can see at least 1 coil. Then we're going to take a shoelace and thread the shoelace between the coils of the spring so that we have a cord like so. And now you can suspend the stock from whatever you want and let it dry that way between coats with nothing touching it. First we'll start with stripping the handguards. I've made a little room here. Don't have a lot of space to work, but all we need is a well-ventilated space. So I have the windows open, all the doors open that I can, ceiling fan going, all that. So we're going to open up the citrus strip, and with our chemical resistant gloves on, and kind of just glop some on top. We'll spread it out better with the brush. This stuff is really, really corrosive, so don't touch it. The last time I did some stock refinishing, I did not have good enough gloves, and they actually melted onto me from touching citrus strip. So keep in mind, not any gloves work. Gotta get the good ones. So we're just painting the citrus strip on. You're gonna want it pretty thick, and it's a gel, so it's going to just kind of lay on there. Doesn't have to be even. We can use multiple passes if we need to. When you're doing a stock, you want to take off all the hardware. For the handguards, there isn't any removable hardware really, so they're just kind of good to go. Okay, so we've had the citrus strip on there for about 20 minutes. So you can see it's kind of hardened a little bit. Anyway, we're going to start scrubbing off the first coat of citrus strip with these scrubbing pads. They're kind of like the stiff part of a sponge. So they're not actually that abrasive. We're just trying to pull the finish off. And, you know, some of it's coming off. But this will definitely require a few coats. What you don't want to do is sand right now. You want to wait for the wood to be completely dry before you do that. So we're going to do all of our wet steps first, and then sand later. See, it's really goopy, but the citrus strip has turned black, so that means we're pulling a lot of old finish, grime and stuff off the wood, and you can already see it's a lot smoother than it was. I'll scrub a bit and then clean it up with paper towels. Top handguard is looking a lot better already. And we're going to scrub underneath as well. Okay, I'll do this a few more times and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so we've put 2 rounds of citrus strip on the wood now, and I've thoroughly dried it with paper towels so it's safe to hold. And you can just feel that a lot of the finish is gone. You're feeling the wood underneath. You're still going to get a lot of the stain. Usually what people do is they'll sand the wood down past where the stain is. But since we want to preserve a lot of the profile of the wood, a lot of the sharp edges, we're actually going to bleach it instead. So what we're going to do is put the wood handguards in a plastic bag, fill it mostly with water, then we'll top it off with some bleach. I'll be honest, I didn't expect this to work when I did it for the stock. Turns out, works pretty well. Leaves the wood a lot whiter, and it takes stain a whole lot better. So, going to close up the bag and try to get most of the air out. It's not that tight of a fit, so it's good for us. Of course, get all the air to rise up to the top. And kind of, you know, just mix it up a little. And we can leave that to soak overnight. So we'll look at it tomorrow. And I'll put it in the bathtub. Bleach tends to eat through the plastic bag, so leave it somewhere that you're okay with bleach running away. And we'll see it tomorrow. Alright, so we're back on day 2. So this morning I took the handguards out of the bleach solution and spent the day drying them while I was at work. So they're just sitting out in a sunny spot to dry. And when I got back, I put them in the oven at the lowest temperature, 170. These handguards get hotter when they're on a rifle anyway, just to dry out the last of the water and bleach and stuff. And I sanded smooth, first with number 1 steel wool, and then 40 steel wool. So now the handguards are very smooth. Again, you just want to do a light sanding. Any other imperfections are going to be covered up with shellac. But now we get to do kind of a fun part, staining. So pretty easy. I have Minwax Colonial Maple here. It's a bit of an alarming orange color, but it works. So all we're going to do is take a paper towel, let it soak up stain, and then just wipe it on. Most of it will be absorbed by the wood right away, but since we bleached it, it's ready to accept color a lot more easily than it would have been otherwise. And again, you really want to make sure it gets everywhere, because even with metal fittings, you're going to see a little bit of wood sticking out from the edges. So it should be the same color, at least. Nice thing with stain is that you really can't mess up. It's going to get absorbed. It's going to be a pretty even coat, no matter really what you do. So looks like we have it pretty universally applied. I don't see we missed any corners. So we'll go to the upper handguard. Oh, bubbles. Got them. Alright, now it's time to go to the upper handguard. These are a bit tougher because you can't really touch most of the wood, but where you grab where the hardware is going to cover up later seems like a pretty good option. When you just take your handguards out of the bleach, they'll be darker because they're wet. When you dry them, they'll turn this white color. They need to be that color to accept stain. If you don't bleach or sand thoroughly enough, if you're sanding, you can really end up with not the color you wanted to have. There are some imperfections on the upper handguard just because of the way it's laminated. When you strip it along the edges, you're going to see some of the laminate start to fight back, kind of pull up. But we'll try to compensate with generous amounts of shellac. And I'm not super worried about what's going on under where the hardware will be. That stuff will get scraped up anyway. So that's our first coat of stain. You can see we're not quite at amber yet, but with the amber colored shellac and another coat of stain, we're going to get there. I'm going to let this dry for 20 to 30 minutes to where it's dry to the touch, then apply another coat. Okay, so since we last saw this, I had one coat of stain. Now it has a second coat on it, and you can see from the inside we've gotten a lot closer to the orange hue that we were going for, but we're still a little ways off from the stock matching. But we're going to make up that difference in the amber colored shellac. So we have our high quality natural fiber paintbrush. This is not something cheap. They make these specifically for finishing. We're going to dip it in the shellac. There are bubbles on top because I stirred it. So we're going to try to get beyond those. You just want to wet your brush just a little bit because we're going to do thin coats. Thin coats are almost always better. So we'll start. This is where you want to be careful about your brush strokes. So actually I'm going to hold it on this end. There we go. Try to only go over one area once. And looks pretty good. There's a spot there. Again, not super concerned about what's going to be under the hardware. But there we go. Touch up a little bit there. I find shellac's a little more forgiving than polyurethane too. It's just a good stuff. To the upper. Again, very little on the paintbrush. We're going to go over everything just once. You can already see we're getting a lot closer to the amber color we wanted. Yeah, I know I went over it twice, but this is the upper handguard. Looks like crap most of the time anyway. Alright, and you can see we're already getting a lot closer to the stock here. I'm going to let those dry, and buff with steel wool between coats. Wash off the paintbrush with an organic solvent. I'm using acetone in a glass cup. You can use paint thinner or whatever you want, and we'll let those dry. Alright, so here is our 4th coat of shellac that has just dried, and we are color matched. So, gonna buff it one last time to knock off the really high gloss, and then it'll be exactly matching. This is the same style of buff that I use between coats of shellac. You're rubbing lightly with the 4-0 steel wool, so you're not taking off material, but you're smoothing the shellac. This removes blemishes. As you coat more and more shellac, any divots get filled in, and then when you smooth it, you flatten the top coat. So more layers of shellac means more blemishes filled in, and then you get an overall better appearance. So after you buff, you just get kind of a low gloss. I mean, it's still shiny, but it's not as shiny. And the upper. You can see how the upper before was pretty crumbly near all the laminate. With enough coats of shellac, all that's gone away. What we're just left with is a good smooth coating. Did they match each other? Yes. Did they match the stock? Yeah, I'd say so. You know, stock's a little warmer. They are different pieces of wood, but they're pretty close. Well, that's it. Nothing more to do. So we're finished. Hope this process was pretty clear for anyone. And if I can refinish a stock set in my bathroom in my apartment, so can you.